Nice. All right, I'm going to call the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners Committee of the Whole, November 21st, 2023 to order. First on the agenda, roll call.
Commissioner DeLue.
Here.
Commissioner Gisler.
Here.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler.
Here.
Commissioner Mazer. Absent. Commissioner Morales is absent. Vice Chair Ray. Commissioner Strebs is absent. Chair Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Wheeler. Here. 6 present.
And I did hear from Commissioner Strebs and Commissioner Mazer. They will not be attending today. They're both recovering from eye surgery and very sick. So next on the agenda is the interview for Central County Transportation Authority, but I believe that one has been pushed back, correct? Administration. I think there was a conflict of. I think Dina told, yep, Dina told me that was pushed back. Okay, next, the interviews for the Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority non-rural sector. Yes. Thank you very much. Now is public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name, address, and you have up to 4 minutes. Thank you. You can come up. You can.
Get you on the
And
microphone.
the
here.
subject I was gonna get on about was the Metro Transit system. I noticed there's been a lot of changes. There's a new system downtown, changed from Michigan Avenue over to Kalamazoo Avenue. What is the budget for them and how will people come into advantage to ride the bus instead of drive? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are there any other citizens wishing to address the Board of Commissioners? See none. We'll move to interview. I don't believe we have any pre-recorded calls tonight. Yep. So next we have the interviews for the Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority. One of them, Denisha Moore, is she available? David Simon, is he available?
Chair, I'm bringing Miss Moore over right now. She's on
Oh.
Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you very much for joining us. I guess we'll give you an opportunity for 30 to 60 seconds to introduce yourself to the board, and then we'll start with Commissioner DeLue with the questions.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Denisha Moore. I am a Kalamazoo County resident. I am interested in the interview with the resident in regards to the transportation. I am a mother of 2. I have resided in Kalamazoo for 34 years, and I enjoy the Kalamazoo mission.
Thank you very much. Commissioner DeLue.
Hello, Ms. Moore. Thank you for your interest. Can you tell me what you know about this advisory board and why you're interested in serving on it?
So what I know about the advisory board is it handles transportation, in which we all need transportation. It handles transportation authority decisions in regards to public transportation, that handles Metro Bus, Metro Van, and that assists with families that is in need of transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gisler.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Moore, good afternoon. I don't know if it's evening yet, but we'll argue over that later. I'm John Gisler. I represent District 6, and I'd like to know what experience you have that's related to the work of this advisory authority. And this could be anything professional or experience you have from your community work.
Yes, I assist with a lot of different organizations inside of the Kalamazoo County, as well as I was a former assistant for the program through Kalamazoo County Juvenile Home, and I am a former administrative assistant at the Girl Scout. And all throughout the transportation for Kalamazoo, I have assisted with dealing with girls as well as boys, as well as adults. With transportation and the needs of transportation, as far as the communication that needs to be handled and addressed and helped with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Denisha. I'm Tammy Ray. I represent District 1. Can you share what you have learned from working with people from different cultures?
The things that I have learned from working with people with different cultures is cultural communication, cultural reach, as well as cultural intelligence, meaning that everyone is dealing with the same issues or experiences, but with dealing with those, they have a different diverse outcome. And with those outcomes, those basically are learning experiences that you can grasp upon.
Thank you.
Thank you. What training, I'm John Taylor, District 5. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? And how will you use what you have learned in your work with this advisory board authority?
So I have actually went through the police academy. I actually hold myself 5 degrees. As well as I volunteer a lot. I am a mother, so I have that experience. And I just try to learn as much as I can. I am a certified notary as well. And just being young, I just try to put my best foot forward and just learn as much as I can.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jeff Hepler. I'm the Vice Chair Pro Tem. I represent District 7, which is the northeast part of the county. My question today is, what do you expect the Advisory Board Authority to give to the community, and how can you help the work of the Advisory Board Authority?
So the word that I can give is reliable, dependable, as well as confidentiality, and assisting and helping with the organization and making informed decisions or based upon the board to achieve realistic goals within the community. What I am expecting from the advisory board is skills, guidance, and knowledge as far as since the board has been basically running.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Denisha. Commissioner Morales, District Number 3. What are 3 things that a member of the advisory board should consider?
The main one for me is like I had stated, for the community, considering everyone's situation, everyone is not coming from the same background as far as transportation wise. So basically like public transportation is a big hit and a big one. So just basically understanding the communication, the community, as well as being realistically.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Abigail Wheeler, District 4. And my question is, are you available for the meeting dates and times associated with this advisory board?
I am. That's one thing that I really pride myself in as far as work ethic is to be dependable and reliable. I teach my kids that as well because it really plays a big role and a big part.
Thank you. And I'll do, what is the greatest strength that you will bring to the advisory board?
Confidentiality. That's one thing for my work performance that I have always have gotten is confidentiality.
And do you have any questions for us that we hopefully will be able to answer? But do you have any questions for us at all?
Just in regards to the follow-up of the meeting, and when will I hear an answer and how soon, are you guys looking to host another meeting?
Yes, we're going to have probably one more meeting time of interviews. I think we have 3 total interviews. One will be at the following meeting and then 2 today. Am I correct in that, Administrator? Yep, 2 today and 1 at the following meeting. We'll be making a decision at our first meeting on Tuesday, which would be the first Tuesday in December. And so you'd probably know either way the Wednesday after that meeting in December.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gisler?
Yes, I'm sorry I was almost late today, but not quite. I'm showing on my computer that there are 2 openings and one of the 3 people has withdrawn. Is that correct? So we've got 2 people to interview for 2 spots?
I was under the understanding, and we'll get some clarification for Dina, that one of the people was just couldn't make it to the scheduled interview today, but was planning on coming at the following meeting. But I can confirm that with Dina. Dina, are you on right now?
I am, and Commissioner Gisler is correct. There currently are only 2 applicants. One withdrew, and then the other is for the CCTA, so.
So the one that couldn't make it was for the CCTA, not the KCTA.
Other way around.
Okay, so I guess the answer of Ms. Moore's question, if you're still on, we will probably have a determination at tonight's meeting and you will know by tomorrow morning. So I apologize for that clarification. Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you, Chair. A follow-up question for Dina. Are we also considering someone we interviewed previously?
Mr. Williams.
Yes, and that, I sent that interview link out ahead of today's meeting as well as linked it in today's packet for you. That was Isaiah Williams.
Still 2 positions.
We'll have all the interviews done tonight, so we can make a determination tonight. Okay.
I think Mr. Ayers.
No, I think Mr. Ayers is not coming tonight.
Yeah, he's the one that's not coming. That was the first interview.
And the other one dropped out, so this is the only one.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long day. Okay, so now I guess we're in discussion. We've got 2 people for 2 spots
No, we still got one more
We have
interview
3.
at our next meeting.
at our next meeting, but that's for,
No, this is
The
for this one,
CCTA.
KCTA. James Ayers couldn't make it tonight.
so James Ayers couldn't make it tonight.
And he was for this one.
And that's for the CCTA was the Radcliffe person that couldn't make it either, or that.
Right.
Okay, so we still have David Simon, correct?
Nope, he dropped out.
He dropped out. James Ayers tonight.
He can't make it.
I've been told like 2 or 3 different things by, it's
Evan Costello
pretty
used to do this,
confusing.
and, you know, who's on first, second?
Yeah, who's on first? Okay, so are we done with the interviews today? Okay, and so we still have to interview James Ayers in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. There's a lot going on here. Okay, next on is the housing priorities. Mary Balkema.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Vice Chair, Ray and Hepler and Board of Commissioners. My name is Mary Balkema, and I stand before you this afternoon as your Housing Director. As you know, it is our custom to open up our portal for housing in December. In advance of opening up the portal, I would like to ask for your approval to open up the following categories: multifamily and the creative category. Some of the key points from the housing plan include the following. It is anticipated that 7,750 new units are needed to approximately house the new households due to estimated population growth in Kalamazoo County. Primary demand, according to our housing plan, is for single-family homes, but there's also interest in tiny homes, accessory dwelling units, cottages, increased work spaces. Mid-density housing types were recommended over single-family detached. Mixed income developments are encouraged. County leaders encourage the construction of diverse types of housing to attract new residents to the area. The housing plan that was passed earlier demonstrated the need for more units, and the only way to get to scale is to build multi-units. As you know, the cost of construction and interest rates continue to be a barrier in new construction. We have several multi-unit developers who are interested in affordable housing and are interested in accessing the housing millage. From the spreadsheets that are in your packet, outlining funding that was sent to you in advance of the meeting by Administrator Catlin, projects take a while to bring to market. For 2022, we have spent down around half of the millage dollars. I expect by year end, it will be closer to 75%. For 2023, you can see the grantees have spent down very little of the funding. These groups have next year and beyond to spend down the award and get their projects completed. In addition to the housing millage money that you allocated, we have allocated over $8 million in ARPA dollars for housing and supportive services. In addition, the Public Housing Commission has allocated $200,000 to ISK for removing barriers to housing families. They are granting them $200,000 for years 2023 and 2024, as was outlined in the work plan at the last meeting. Because of the survey, the drawdown of funds, the multi-year funding awards, and the recommendations in the housing plan, I am recommending opening the portal December 15 and closing it January 31st for the multi-unit category and the creative category. That should give groups sufficient time to access the Amplifund system given the holidays. With your nod, I will move forward on that. For awards that do not have an executed grant agreement, the recommendation is that the conditional approval will automatically expire 20 months after we've made awards. We need to get our funds out on the street, and some projects are not going to get to the finish line. If the project gets additional funding and support, we can get across the finish line, they are welcome to reapply for funding. In consultation with the county corporate council, it is strongly recommended that the county adhere to a consistent scoring process. To further this goal, the recommendation is to call a special public meeting, invite each group that has made a grant application submission, and give applicants 10 minutes to present their project. I will provide a matrix for the county board at the dais to complete the scoring. The scoring will then be aggregated and presented as a recommendation at a future board meeting. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Questions from Commissioner Gissler?
Not really a question, a comment. Thank you, Chair. So this means we'll actually have a chance to hear the sponsors or developers present for 10 minutes their
Yes.
approach to things. I don't believe we did that in the past, did we?
We did not.
Of course, we
do-
had 131 or something like that, it might have taken up too much time, but this is a great idea. I like it.
Thank you. And I'll have a matrix, so it's, everyone knows what they're scoring, what the questions we ask, and what we're scoring them against. The commissioners have questions, and so it'll all be transparent and absolutely.
Vice Chair Ray?
Thank you, Chair. To that question, will we still have access to the documents and applications at Amplifund?
You will have access to all of them, and anyone who has problems accessing the Amplifund, I will also leave a hard copy so you can see the work, ask the questions, and see the presentation at the same time. So some people struggle with the system, and I understand that. So your access will be open, and if you want to score them online, you're welcome to do that too. But I would ask that everyone, for consistency, score them on the dais, and so that I can aggregate it and we can really stick to a process.
Can you allow her follow up and then I'll get back to you, Commissioner Gissler?
Oh, I have a few questions. Okay, so the first one, when I was reading through what you presented to us, it stated that There was $3.3 million available to award, and maybe that was in the survey poll results. However, it now says $2.1 million. Is there a reason for that decrease?
Yeah, and you'll talk about that in closed session. So that
Oh,
number
okay.
could change.
And then my next question, I went through all of the survey results, really good results. Thank you for doing that. Some of the categories that the folks who took the survey wanted to see funded were multifamily, supportive services, and rehab owner occupied was like the top three.
Mhm.
However, only multifamily is recommended in this process. Is there a reason why we don't also have an allocation for supportive services?
That's a good question. So the creative category could encompass anything. In the supportive services, we've given multi-funding year awards to ISK, for instance. And we've given supportive services also in ARPA. And they really do have enough money to get through next year as well. So, if there's a huge demand for something that we don't know about, that creative category could catch that.
Okay, so the supportive service dollars that went to ISK from the Public Housing Commission, that was funds from a totally different millage. It wasn't this housing millage. That was something totally different.
It was from the 2015
Right.
housing millage that the commission gave to the Public Housing Commission to administer. That is correct.
Right, so not this. So is there a space though to add that category for me? I like to see supportive services as one of the buckets that we are opening up for people to apply for. And I think that one should always be a part of the process. And then I just have one more question. I wrote a lot of notes. I'm sorry. It was a lot of information. I appreciate all the information.
Absolutely.
So where you talked about the awards that don't have an executed excuse me, agreement, conditional approval, they will expire in 20 months after the award was made. Looking at 2022, there are about 3 organizations who don't have a contract. So when did we or how do we decide on the 20 months? I also heard you say folks whose funding has not been expended, they'll have however long to do their projects. Why is that not the same for those who do not have a executed contract?
You don't have an executed contract. Maybe the county's the only funder, right? You've gotten the housing millage, but in your capital stack, everyone else is missing and you're really struggling. So obviously I've contacted those and see how the county could be helpful. Me and the administrator have met with one person in particular, but if you don't have an executed contract, you honestly aren't going to get to the finish line. We don't want your money hanging out here. We need housing desperately, so we want to allocate it to another project. If there's a small glimpse of hope that you will get to it, you know what I mean? We'll keep it out here. But I don't want to execute a contract and then have to come back amendment after amendment after amendment when you're really struggling and you're not going to get it. You're not going to get your project to where it needs to be.
Makes sense. One follow-up question.
Sure.
Are we gonna also add like a timeline or a time frame for those who have not spent any of the money? We still have some folks from 2022 who have not spent any of the dollars, and as we see, like 23, nobody has used the funding either.
Yes, and so, I put on there what's really reasonable. So we allocate you money in 22. Is 2 years reasonable? Is 3 years reasonable? When you awarded the tax credits to Hollander, to all these different groups, you're like, if you don't get tax credits in 2 consecutive rounds, you're probably not going to get it and our award expires. And so if this board gives me feedback on what would be customary, after 2 years, if you really haven't got your project started, maybe you're not serious about it, or something's changed in the community or the interest rates or the cost of construction, and you're really not going to do it. I'm open to feedback on that because, is 2 years good? Is 3 years good? But I also know that if we don't spend on our funds and get our projects complete, if we ever go out for a renewal of the millage, it's going to be really dicey. We're going to have ginormous fund balances, and it's not going to be believable that we're in a housing crisis.
Commissioner Gisler.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I heard you correctly. I just want you to say it again, because I'm one of those people that had trouble with digital online Amplifund. I'll be able to do Amplifund scoring on a piece of paper.
Absolutely, and I will have it, and so it'll be uniform and absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome.
With that, Commissioner Gisler and I are in complete agreement. I would rather do it on paper as well.
I'll have paper for everybody.
But just a couple of comments. One, I thank you for the opportunity. I think it's a good idea to have these people and then all the developers present to the board 10 minutes, then we can score. I think that's a great idea. Number two, I think, and stop me, corporate counsel, if I get out of line on this, but if, as we discuss it, stuff in closed session, we can put additional dollars towards supportive services and those sorts of categories, correct? Is that, am I okay with asking that question?
Chair, thank you for the question. So if the board were to make a determination that unexecuted grant agreements are not going to move forward with an award, so that would take an action by the board in open session to decide a particular grant agreement that hasn't been signed, isn't going to move forward. Those monies can then be put back into the housing millage if the board takes that action or chooses to take that action, and then you could make different allocations. Yes.
Understood. Gotcha. Thank you. And I guess on the creative categories, I think that's a great idea too. One of the things that this is sort of just kind of an offshoot comment, but I see a lot of retail office space for rent all over Kalamazoo downtown. Have there been any sort of works with zoning or local cities of maybe using this fund to transition as more and more people work from home, less and less retail space is needed to transfer those into apartments or livable units?
Sure, like the Coney Island project, that's the whole top is going to be housing, and then the retail space is going to be redone. So we look at buildings constantly, there's state grants, revitalization and placemaking to make some of that stuff happen too. So as it makes sense, it's really expensive to rehab a commercial building into housing because you need bathrooms and kitchens and everything. And so it's almost a full gut rehab when that happens. So the square footage cost is still very, very expensive, but we look at anything that comes and that is available. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hepler.
Thank you, Chair. Real quick, I saw that you did have some things in there that showed rehabbing or helping to rehab a number of homes. You did it in Galesburg. I think it's great. It looks like Comstock and some of the other outlying areas which are in sore need of rehabbing homes that would make, and I know we put a lot of money into the city of Kalamazoo, the city of Portage in this housing stuff that we've done, very little outside of that, but I'm glad to see that there seems to be movement towards helping the rest of the county move forward, because I know there are some homes that probably need some help, and if we can kind of work with our contractors to help those homes that are there that we can save and bring back to life and house folks in a safe and secure manner, I think is critical. So I appreciate your survey. It looked very interesting. I was very pleased to see that. And the response you got was quite great, in my opinion. But, thank you for putting that out there and the work you've done on this. So.
Vice Chair, I would bring to your attention that KNHS and Community Homeworks, they have received grants and they are countywide. So that is roof repair, that is emergency repair. They will do things like eradicate bed bugs. So we have expanded it if there's a critical need. And so formerly it did work exclusively in the city of Kalamazoo, as you know. But if you want something for a newsletter in your area or something so folks know what to call, what to do, how to fill out an intake, I'm happy to help you with that because those two groups have opened it up countywide. Sure, I'll get with you.
Thank you. That was what I was looking for.
Okay, I'll
I'm
get
back.
with you sometime this week.
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. And so with Community Homeworks, I know they had expelled their down payment system that they had before. Prior, people had to put down $400 to start getting some repair done. And I know they took away that expense. So with these critical repair expenses, is this still going by income? Is this income based?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Any other questions from
And
Commissioner?
yes, one more. And then as I look, I know, Vice Chair, I mentioned earlier about the folks that are not, that haven't used money to date. So I see KNHS down here with the down payment assistance. Like how, I mean, people need down payment assistance. So I see them above using funds, but below they're not. So I guess what's the holdup with
They-
down payment assistance?
They said they're working on it.
What does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
can we get a timeline? Or so when we give them the money, we just, that's the third party and we
No, no,
don't.
no, we don't give money. We're on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
So you have to have all your stuff into here. So if, no, they submit their bills, we review them, and then you pay them. So we do not front money. We're on a reimbursement basis on that.
So they don't have to give us a timeline?
Their grant does have a timeline.
Okay.
Yes.
And that gets me into the good, thank you, Commissioner Morales, because that kind of got my wheels turning on this board. What do we think is an appropriate timeframe for a lot of these awards in order to get expended? 2 years, 30 months, because once you get the grant, then you gotta, we're a reimbursement basis. We're last money in, correct? So it'll be, it's 2 years, a good time frame from when they're getting this award to when they can make their numbers work to get shovel ready? Or is it 2.5, 3 years? I mean, that's probably a policy decision as we go. And we're kind of learning to ride the bike as we, go along here. We're the first in the state to have this type of millage. So we're learning as we go here, but I do think that having a stipulation or a timeline before those dollars are used would be prudent, because otherwise it's just sitting around and it's not getting into the community. So I agree with that assessment.
So Chair, what I'm hearing is that you are okay with the process, right? Having 10-minute presentations. You're okay with opening up the portal December 15 and closing it January 31st. And after the closed session, you'll give me direction on what categories you'd like to see funded.
I think that is a perfect assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good. Everyone's good?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Next, Finance Director Post. Transfers and disbursements.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, Commissioners. Accounts payable claims list totaling $8,720,235.47 is presented for your review. Of this total, the Board of Commissioners is asked to approve claims totaling $8,511,573.79. Payroll disbursements totaling $3,518,267.45 are presented for the November 9th general, November 13th special, and November 15th elected payrolls. There also are no conflicts of interest, and there were 2 checks reissued due to the vendor not receiving them.
Questions from commissioners? Thank you very much. Let's move on to the monthly financial.
All right, so the monthly financial statement for the period of October 2023 has been presented to the board as well as administration. Through October, we are 83.33% is the target. Just a couple of highlights. When we look at the revenue, the property tax has begun to come in, at least through this report through October. The property tax is the largest portion of revenue for the county's revenue. And that appears to be about 76% collected property tax through October. I will jump ahead to next month and be able to tell you at that point, we're at least 96%. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit on that. So in terms of property tax, that's excellent to see that. When we go ahead and we look at expenditures, we can see that the expenses for personnel should be no surprise to the board. We're slightly below the target for that by about 5%. Overall, our expenditures were below 80%. Again, below the target. The net position, this is the first monthly report where revenues are getting close to the expenditures. And again, that's just due to the cycle of the property tax collections. So this is great to see this from October, and I look forward to the next few months as we wrap up 2023. Are there any questions from the board?
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hepler.
Can you clarify, you said that this is the end of October or the beginning of October?
This report is through 10/31, the end of October.
End of
correct?
October.
Correct.
So, and we're showing how, most of our revenues, 70-some% is.
Yeah, so the specifically with the property taxes, we're about 76%, which appears to be below the 83% target, but that's just, again, due to when the property tax revenue comes in. So all revenues are below the target, but so are the expenses.
So all of our revenues are below the target amount. But so are our expenditures.
Correct. And to further that statement there, Vice Chair Pro Tem, so on the property taxes over the next month, as I kind of hinted towards, will be closer towards 100%. And again, that's just due to the cycle of when those dollars come in, which we've experienced over the last 2 months for the property tax. Yep.
Thank you.
Questions from commissioners? I have a couple of quick ones. Central, I'll go in order. The central service cost recovery, is that a traditional revenue that we'd get in December or towards the end of the, because I see we're at 56 million of our 6.445 budgeted.
Correct. So that, I guess it kind of depends. I don't have a concrete answer on that. What I can tell you, the finance staff, what they're doing is they're sending, they're recording the indirect costs, the central survey cost. Some of them are monthly, and that tells me that's probably the grant that wants to see that.
Gotcha.
Whereas some of them may just, be expensed towards the end of the fiscal year.
And a lot of the grants for state especially will come in November and December after the fiscal year. And
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
okay, and then the other question I had, treasurer, it's 1.99. We're adjusting what's going into that line item so that revenue made off of, say, road commission bonding or some other source that wasn't attached to our general fund is no longer reflected in that income statement on the revenue side.
Chair, could I ask you to repeat that question? I had the chief deputy treasurer in the audience, and I wanted him to hear that as well one more time. I believe the answer is yes to that, but I would like him to hear that if I may.
For instance, we budgeted under treasurer on the revenue side. I'm assuming it's 99% of that is just investment income. But we budgeted 1,080,000. We're at 1,990, but we're actually at a much higher rate than that, although we are earning interest for other sort of funds, not just our general fund. So that my question, I guess, is does the 1.990 reflect just interest income that is responsible or to the general fund? Because I know we've earned more than 1.99 in investment income. He's about to give his investment report. But.
I'm pulling that up on the general ledger in real time as we speak.
Sorry.
Okay, so it looks like, to answer your question there, the primary source is the dividends, as well as I do see there is investment gains and losses. Those are recorded separately, but that is the primary source of revenue, to answer your question, in their budget.
So that we have made more than 1.99 this year in interest income off of our capital. this 1.99 number is just reflective of dividends made off of the general fund, correct?
That is my understanding. And the chief deputy treasurer said he would speak to that next, if he may
Okay.
address that.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And then the last one, I know the cannabis tax, where was that? Revenues by function. Yeah, cannabis tax. I know we did receive that just recently, correct? So that would be reflective in the end of November's report, if we just got it recently. I guess maybe that would be a question for administration. We haven't received the cannabis tax dollars yet? We received it in March.
Yeah, so Chair, we're in a year in arrears on marijuana tax. So the funding that we received this March was for 2022 activity. We won't receive 2023 until March of 2024. So it's always a year in arrears. That's why it's for us when we're going through the budget, it's difficult to come up with a projection of that because we're a year behind, and we try to look at what's been developed and what's opened to try to forecast that.
And so so we won't technically really be able to balance our budget until March of next year, correct?
I don't think that's the case. So I mean, the budget is based on projections. So we forecasted for 2024 that we would receive 1.75 million. So we've forecasted based on 2022 numbers that we're going to be increasing that budget by about, $250,000. So we received 1.5 million for 2022 due to activity and new businesses opening. We projected that, we'll be at 1.75 million, but we really won't know that until for 2024. We won't know that until 2025.
Wow.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's Commissioner Morales.
Thank you. So is that what this uncollected balance means for the next year for the for the $1 million dollars? So we won't see that. We'll see that in March, or we won't see that till the next March, not 24, but 25 is what you're saying? So this isn't from the 1 million that's uncollected isn't from 2023. This is still 2022 money?
We've already received 2022. So in March of 2024, that's when we will receive 2023 money, which I believe that budget's 1.5 something million. Yeah. So we should hopefully receive that entire balance or more. Our projection is that it should be a little bit more, so that when we receive the funding for 2024 in 2025, it should hopefully be 1.75 million or above. Yes.
So follow up, Chair. So this uncollected balance is short of that 1.5. That means we're still collecting.
Yes,
as we go.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we'll not get to really 100% of collected until March. Is that the last one that are we in the rears? Anything else on the revenue side? Delinquent tax probably as well, correct?
So if I may, so this is what finance we call the year-end process that we've begun. And so as our fiscal year will end in December, a lot of those revenues, just because of the timing, are going to fall into 24. And so that's where it's imperative where the finance team is able to capture and recognize the differences between the fiscal years and bring back, if you would, the revenue in 23. This would be one of them, but there's many out there. When we look specifically at the state grants, for that revenue is the source, we can see that's below 60%, slightly over 50, but here we are, at this point of the fiscal year. That's just because the state has not released those yet. So around that March timeframe is when my hope is that we have captured, recognized, accrued, and are able to bring that in for the books. While recognizing the audit's due by June 30th. So that still leaves us, 3 months, which we definitely don't want to wait that long, but that's the timing of the audit process in year end.
I was just gonna say, jump into the audit process. That's got to make things really tight. I wasn't aware that was that much in the rears and a lot of that budgeting practice. That's it's got to make it really tight from when you do get that revenue to when you have to clean up the books completely for the audit, correct?
There's challenges, but we will overcome them.
Good answer. And then I guess the last one is just probably just sort of a symbolic sort of thing. I'd rather it be called the cannabis tax than the marijuana tax. That marijuana has a very negative racial kind of connotation from when it was first came up with that use of the phrase. Cannabis is much more politically correct term than marijuana, but that's just my 2 cents on that. But that's it. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Gissler, you want to bite on that?
Yeah. When the Cannabis Act was on the ballot, was it referred to as cannabis or was it referred to as marijuana?
It was specifically purposely referred to as cannabis. And when Michigan did their medical marijuana act, it was marijuana, but they recognized, and so they misspelled it on purpose on the marijuana cards so as not to be racially disparaging as the term marijuana, but they still used the term marijuana as opposed to cannabis.
And we actually voted cannabis.
I believe the
recreational
recreational was cannabis, but it was called marijuana in the media and everything else. They started doing that, but yeah, it's a little too late. Too little, too late. All right, sorry about that, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda. Get this up. Financial policy revision to the credit card policy. Investment report. I'm sorry. Treasurer, Deputy Treasurer White.
There we go. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, and Commissioners. To report on the county's investment portfolio as of October 31st, previously sent to you by administration. As of October 31st, the county's investment portfolio had a par value balance of $178,045,182.73 and a market value of $176,348,719.50, just under a 1.7 million market value variance between the par value and the market value. For the month, the portfolio earned $603,715.50 on an average daily balance of $176,089,846.08 for an effective rate of return on the county's investments of 4.04%. Note that this rate is lower than our last couple of months due to some realized losses on maturities and sales of a couple of our federal agency securities and treasury notes. These transactions are through one of our partner brokers. And note that these partner managed accounts have a current yield of 5.52%. So we're not concerned on the whole. This is just part of doing business with our investment partners. For the year, the portfolio has earned $5,988,254.14. And this includes all of our realized gains and losses from investment activity, along with the normal monthly amortization of premiums and discounts. And of this, $2,895,756.66 relates to the general fund investment. So earlier you mentioned treasury. It took me a minute to go, wait, that's me. So with that, that goes back to last month, how I had mentioned a little bit of the accounting templates and what Tyler Munis pulls into the ERP system. This is going to be something that our office works with finance offline to make sure that's all squared away. It's moving those funds around from the dividend revenue account to 66900 investment gains and losses. We needed a pass through. That was the pass through. That's why it's off. As part of the year-end cleanup, we're going to be making sure that that's clean too. So that way that's not pulling into it. The actual number is still the 2,895,756 and 66 cents. That's the general fund share of that. And so in other updates for those not keeping score and preferring to watch the Lions or Red Wings as opposed to the Federal Reserve meetings, the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors did meet at the end of October. They opted to pause on other interest rate hikes since monthly inflation numbers are getting lower. September was at 3.7%, October was at 3.2%. Fed's target is still 2%, so we're not out of the woods, but we expect the holidays will get a lot of information for us with that spending. The next meeting is December 12th and 13th, so we'll keep you updated as we learn more. Chair Taylor, you had fielded a question to Treasurer Whitener and a little bit on this to elaborate with inflation. A point was raised to us about our investment returns and buying power as it relates to what we've been earning versus inflation and those increases. For the month of October, we earned 4.04%. Monthly inflation was 3.2. So we are still experiencing net gains in terms of our purchasing power. But this wasn't always the case. When inflation was around 7%, we didn't get near that. We're happy to report, though, that our investment gains for the month exceeded the increased costs in the economy at large. And so for more of those updates, we'll keep you posted. Hopefully inflation continues to lower because I'd like all of our groceries to be a little less expensive too. If y'all have any questions, please feel free. Be happy to elaborate.
Questions from Commissioner Gissler?
Thank you. Having somebody like you at the podium is just an open invitation for me to ask some questions that you can defer and tell me, you really don't want to answer. But it's my understanding, and I may be wrong, that inflation numbers that we see in the media are based on expenses, costs of things, but the two things that are not included, among others, I'm sure, are fuel and food. Is that correct?
I would have to dig specifically into what the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts in. I believe it's CPI, Consumer Price Index, but I'm not as certain on what goes into that. I have to check in on that, but I'd be happy to get back to you offline.
I'd appreciate it. There's no rush. It's just something that's been in the back of my head for quite some time. And I thought, boy, if you take away food and fuel, yeah, it probably isn't much. But go buy a tank of gas or, a bunch of food at your favorite store, and I think you'll notice it. So I'm just leery when I see numbers like that. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Just a comment. This is great news. As you said, inflationary at 3.2 in October, and we're earning 4.04. If this continues, and I don't anticipate it to, as inflation starts dropping, interest rates will start to come down as well. And but I think this is great news. We are, as I said, in the last year we were not beating inflation, and this year we are starting to turn the corner. And I commend you and I commend Thomas in that office. So good job. Right. Next on the agenda is credit card policy. Administrator Catlin or Terrell, do you want to?
Pardon me, we were rock, paper, scissoring, deciding how we were going to start this one. So this is a policy revision. The language change is subtle, but it really centers around giving departments a little more encouragement, direction in order to reduce the amount of fees that the county is paying for credit card transactions. The board passed in the first of this year for the ability for departments to endeavor to pass those fees on to the user of credit cards. So that's what the intent and purpose is of this policy change. So it's a little more direct in the language. It has two features. One is to be able to recoup the exact fees charged, but then also it gives guidance in terms if departments endeavor to also charge a technology fee. So that would be associated costs with providing network connections, hardware costs, things of that nature, which is separate from the fees associated with merchant related type fees from credit cards. So it's two distinct things regarding credit card payments. There are cases where sometimes you may lease equipment, and so the cost of that lease you pass back on, and this gives a structured way in order to get that done. So there's two parts to it. The first really truly is purely around for those fees that the county is taking on right now, really having those departments work through with their credit card providers the method to get those fees back. There's several different ways to do it, but to work through that process and this is the policy that would support that.
Questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions. The first one, when you talk about the technology fee, so departments could charge members of the public technology fees in addition to the credit card fees?
The policy allows for that, but there's a
Okay.
process to get to that point. So this is by policy allowing for that to occur.
Okay, and then the second question is currently, how much are the fees costing the county annually?
Maybe even a little more, but we'll check the exact number, but our napkin related math now is around 80,000.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. I know last year I can't remember what committee it was, but we decided to have a service charge fee from the clerk's office for the usage of credit cards, and that's supposed to go, I guess, into the general fund. So none of that money can be used so that we can avoid this.
To my knowledge right now, that fee is not being applied.
In the clerk's office?
Correct.
And we got some emails from the clerk, and I think Vice Chair Ray and Commissioner Hepler did, and they had some questions as to that. There, from what my understanding is that there's not an opportunity to charge a 3% because of how Tyler Technologies works with, they're not certified to accept those payments. So if they baked in the 3% cost of service, it would be baked into every payer, not just credit card payers. Is that?
So each department, and I want to be as clear as I possibly can and not, confuse issues. But right now, multiple departments are using credit card fees. They're all using different merchants. They're all doing it different ways. There's no set standard. So this policy gives a little bit of guidance. So the merchant who the clerk uses, their agreement and their technology has certain limitations. So the county through the ERP system has another option. That option at the time, as we've kind of endeavored through the year, they were not able to meet certain security related requirements for us. They have since worked through that, and we're at a point now where we can look at that. Now, different departments have other issues, such as the cost that they just paid for the machines they have. So there's a little bit of sunk capital, that we're concerned with. Like, you just spent X amount of money. This merchant can't do it. What's another way that we can do it? So having said that, there are several ways that you can recoup, in a sense, the cost, right? In some providers, they'll do it on the back end where it comes separated. It's very clear that, hey, if you're using credit card, here's this particular surcharge. You have to make it as plain as day. So they have the option, cash, check, charge, that sort of thing. And then the processor will take it. They'll take the entire money and they'll send back to the county the associated fee for that particular thing. So if it's a birth record, marriage license, whatever, if it's $25, we get the $25. That other, fee and charge, they'll absorb all that, right? So that surcharge. In this case, that's not possible. So the clerk would work with the vendor to say, because a credit card payment, there are two charges that come across. So on a receipt, you'll see the $15 and then 45 cent, right, charge. So on a receipt, it would be itemized that way. The person would get charged both. We would collect those fees. The county would get charged for that credit card processing, but we now have the funds to pay for that, right? So that's what the clerk would have to work with to establish the second method, right?
And I know the clerk has been very upset that she can't get that system up and running based on, from what my understanding is, we had a contract with Michigan retailers as our credit card vendor that did not work with Tyler Technologies, that they weren't compatible. So for instance, Parks Department was doing different things and what the treasurer was doing different things and what the clerk was doing, and every different person that was taking credit card payments was taking them in different sort of systems in different sort of ways. And a lot of those costs, I know that the clerk was upset, but that her budget was getting eaten up with a lot of the bank fees, and she was paying those bank fees out of her budget. Whereas if she had a way to charge it, she would onto the customer. My understanding is in order to do that, to bake in that $3 technology fee or to bake into that fee, you'd have to have at the point of entry system, an employee would have to say, okay, this is a credit card. We've got to change our system so that I push this button, for instance, I don't know what it is, but I push this button and now we're charging that $3 fee or that instant fee because they're using a credit card. Right now, I think all they can do is we have to charge marriage licenses now $18, whether you're paying cash or whether you're paying credit card. And she doesn't want to do that. She's with the kids right now. I wish she was here to speak, but that was her sort of system. So I guess my question would be, would there be an implementation process that we could show all these different departments, whether it's parks, treasurer, clerk? I don't know which other ones take credit cards, but those are the three big ones that come to mind. Airport probably as well. But how do we come up with a system so that they can implement it, and then that fee is not charged to every single individual? I guess that's the question.
So, were you about to say? Okay. So, yes, so there's like I said, there's several different ways that could be done, and it depends on, again, the vendor that particular department is with, right? And the agreements that they particularly have. Moving forward, what we would like to do is actually have several different options that could be available for departments to choose from. In some instances, there are some regulations, the way the cash flow has to go. It may or may not work. Our current vendor has, in the county, we have moved beyond some of those earlier limitations. So we probably need to revisit with the clerk on that issue, see if that works. If not, then there are looking at other particular vendors on my deal that we could look at or go through RFP. So then we're providing departments options that best fit their business model and practice, right?
So there'll be a list of vendors, basically.
Right. Well, it wouldn't be an exhaustive list. It would be, hey, there are three. They went through a competitive process. They offer this, these different things that you can do. And in the interim, there are menus of items that, depending on how the point of sale that exists, operates, that this person's paying through method and it's this price, right? So if you're paying with cash, here it is. And if it's a flat fee. So there are options where if you have a static price, you can charge then a static fee and assemble a bill sheet to some extent, right? As opposed to a calculated calculation of overall cost. So there's different ways to get to the same goal. The point of the policy is just giving people the tools through policy that they can do it. Now implementation is a whole separate thing. Right.
Yeah, I think we've had the policy, to charge it. It's just impossible it seems very difficult, at least, to try to to have a uniform system that's going to work with everybody. I mean, county government is, as you know, is a collection of lots and lots of silos. but
And Chair, you're 100% correct. The point of entry for, and forgive me, directors who are listening, but I'll be specific in the sense that, animal control, for licenses have one system. Parks for payment has one different system. Treasury uses a different system, and you go all the way down the line. Each group has their own, and they have their own particular way of how things get done. So we just want to have support that allows for folks that flexibility. But the most important thing, at least from the financial side of it, is how can you ensure that the county is not taking on undue burden? In the treasurer's instance, by policy, he said, "Look, I do not want this extra. I will budget for it." So for everyone else, it's unbudgeted, right? So if they say, "Hey, we want it no matter what method, the same price to the resident," they have to then budget for that, and that was not happening.
Vice Chair Ray?
Thank you, Chair. So a couple questions. Do all departments know that they can budget for that so that they don't have to charge the members of the public that fee?
I believe that is the case, but I cannot attest for what if they know that.
Okay.
But
I just want to be clear that under this policy as written, in order to be able to use credit cards, it's not a change in the policy, two things had to be in place, which is that there has to be a sufficient number of transactions and services to make it worthwhile, and then the fee has to be recovered. And so those are like threshold items in order to be charging for credit cards. As the policy is written, we're not supposed to be budgeting it in and absorbing that fee. This is saying if we use credit cards, we need to cover the cost externally rather than absorbing them into county budgets. So that is not an option.
Well, it can be an option if we make it an option, correct? We can set a policy that says that the county can absorb that cost, correct?
We could very well
Okay.
with a majority vote, we could set the policy that we would, but if, as administrator said, it's about 80 grand a year.
Okay, so that was my next question. So how many departments currently aren't charging the fee? And then how many would need that additional support from vendors in order to charge that fee? And is the 80,000, the county absorbing the napkin amount of the 80K more cost effective than implementing a whole new software system so that other departments can charge the fee?
It's a great question, Vice Chair. So we received numbers, updated numbers from finance. So it's year-to-date total is $100,998.35. There are several, I would say, multiple departments within the general fund that provide services to the public. So they charge the public a credit card or do not currently charge credit card fees. The only department that does, which is a more of an enterprise fund, will be the Parks Department. So year-to-date total, they have about almost close to $12,000, but they actually do recover their fees. They charge fees to recover those fees incurred by the bank. The rest of the general fund dollars, so you're looking at, I would say this is almost close to $90,000 are fees that we just eat. So it's about $90,000 that the county is absorbing into county budgets. And so either, the board wants to budget the fees and cover the 90,000 for services rendered, or we pass those fees on to the customers that we serve.
Thank you, Administrator. Me personally, I would just like to see us budget the 90,000 so we don't have to pass it on to the general public who are already technically paying the fee by way of property taxes or paying for county services.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, and then I'm gonna let the deputy clerk raise his hand, so I'm gonna let him speak next.
Thank you. I am concerned about that. It's a fee because you're using a credit card versus a check. And I don't think that the taxpayers themselves should be covering for people who want to use a credit card versus write them a check. So I kind of disagree with you a little bit there, just for the simple fact that that the taxpayers are going to fund somebody that wants to use a credit card versus somebody who writes a check or comes down and pays cash. I think it's unfair to those taxpayers for $100,000 or thereabouts is what we're talking about, that they're paying, that we're paying for their use fee and not, it makes it convenient for them. And I don't have a problem with that, but I really don't feel that the taxpayer should be paying the fee for those who use a credit card. When I use a credit card, I have to pay the fees on it. So I guess I kind of disagree on that. And I think it's unfair to the rest of the taxpayers of the county to fund those. And it should just be passed along as an expense. And I think we should work towards having equipment that absorbs that and passes along the fee.
Thank you. So I guess I'm confused because last year, myself, Commissioner, Lord, was Dr. Fran, and McKissick sat here and it was two voted yes. And I voted no on this with the same concerns. I didn't think that people who wrote checks were coming in and getting a service charge. I thought it was specifically for credit card users. And I said, well, to Vice Chair's point, we're already paying these taxes. Why are we charging these people? So the city was used as an example. And they said, well, the city has something, no matter how you pay, if you pay online or whatever, we have these additional fees that are being charged. So the fact that, and it could be my fault that I'm out the loop, but when we passed that, I thought that was in practice for the clerk's office. So we did all of that, had all these meetings, passed it to come back to this. I'm confused. So are we talking about check fees or regular payment fees, or are we just specifically talking about the credit card fee? So I'm asking about the policy that was passed last year to actually assess the fees in the clerk's office. And that was just for the clerk's office, to my knowledge. It wasn't for any other card user. So I didn't think that any payment in the clerk's office was being assessed a charge, just those who were deciding to use a credit card.
So from a policy perspective, my understanding is your understanding is correct. That is for credit cards and credit cards only. That's what the policy, but in application, what's actually happening is that fee is not being assessed. So the county is taking all of those fees and paying for that.
I got that. So I guess I don't understand what you're saying, that taxpayers are paying for people who will want to write a check?
No, for people who are using a credit card.
I'm like, what the heck? But we passed it, so I guess I didn't know. I'm out the loop on that. I know that we sat here and we debated for a while because I didn't feel like we should be charging taxpayers to use a debit card online or if they come in the building or not. So basically, I guess when Chief comes up, we'll know how much you're in the rear of, because really that fund was just to cover your actual fee for having the equipment to use a credit card, correct? Kind of.
Yeah,
Please.
Deputy Kern, if you want to.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, members of the board. John Curran, Chief Deputy Clerk Register, also a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. The clerk register can't be in person right now. I know she's watching the stream at home. And I just wanted to come up and add a little bit to the conversation as it pertains to our office. Now, this policy, as I understand it, is not limited just to our office. But there's been some discussion about our budgeting practices and whether or not we're assessing fees on credit card transactions currently. So the office of the clerk register did not budget for any expenses expected for the 2023 year for credit cards because the office anticipated that this policy would have been fully implemented by now and that we would have the technological ability to pass on those fees to the customers, as the policy has dictated for at least a year now. Now, I think the clerk register has made it known. I joined the office in February. Within my first couple of weeks, I sat in conversations with her and representatives from the administration where she raised concerns about the inability of our existing vendor to pass on. And when I say our vendor, I mean Michigan Retailers. That's a contract held by the county, not by our office. We are bound by the county's contract with Michigan Retailers to Michigan Retailers credit card terminals. We can't choose who our credit card terminal vendor is. They do not have the ability to pass on that fee to the customer as we see it. And so that's a request that we've made repeatedly over a series of months to administration to work and I believe administration and the treasurer's office to work toward advancing that technology so that we're able to do that. It's the clerk's position that we cannot just add a 3% charge to statutory fees that are set in state statute and assess that charge to customers. If it can be passed on by the credit card merchant, so we can be in compliance with the existing financial policy, or if the board sees fit to amend the financial policy so that we can be in compliance with our current technology. But it's not something that just came up today with the clerk's emails. It's something that we've been in conversation about for many months and trying to get aligned and in compliance with the policy. That's the goal here, to follow the board's will. And as regards to the fees, I think our office is at about $6,500 in bank fees so far this year. We're on track for, I think, going to end up spending about $8,000 in unbudgeted, unanticipated expenses for those fees because of all the issues I just described.
Is there questions? Commissioner Morales, did you have any questions?
I guess when we voted on this, my expectation is that this was all figured out. Because we sat here and we debated and, I felt like the clerk was very prepared when they brought this forward, and to learn this now is just a little confusing and disappointing because I didn't support the thing in the first place. So, thank you.
Well, I guess the conversation, Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. I think having the customer pay for the convenience of using a credit card and not having to have a bank account that'll cash a check for the same amount right now, maybe you will next week, next month, is just going to become a part of doing business in a lot of ways. Right now, a couple of my favorite restaurants, when I put a credit card down to pay for the restaurant bill, they're saying that's a credit card transaction and we want either a percentage or a flat dollar amount added. And the first time I saw that, I was a little miffed, but then I thought, well, this is really convenient for me. I don't have to carry a checkbook. I don't have to carry cash. And I can get it printed out by the bank at the end of the month and they can show me exactly where I spent for how much. Is that worth 3% or $3 per transaction? In some cases it is for me. And that's I think who the credit card is for, the convenience of the ultimate customer. And if we can't somehow build that into our system, we really need to look at our system harder, John. I think you did a good job of explaining what unless I misunderstand it, but I thought I understood what Monteith said. And I'm in total agreement with you. This is part and parcel of living in this day and age. You're going to have to pay for the convenience of putting a piece of plastic down. Vice Chair Ray?
I just got one comment, then I'm done. I just want to note that it's 2023 and having a credit card or a debit card is no longer a convenience. It's the norm. Like everything is electronic, like tapping your phone is a new thing, and checks are kind of outdated and nobody has those anymore. So just wanted to note that I don't think that we're really paying for convenience, and I'm still not in support of charging the residents this credit card fee.
Commissioner Wheeler.
At my previous job, we charged a 3% fee for credit card transactions. And I get what you're saying, Vice Chair, I do. So maybe if we do start charging the customer, it's an education piece and we blast it everywhere that, hey, if you're going to put down your plastic, you're going to have to pay for it. So like be prepared to bring cash. So at least we can have the education piece if that's the direction we decide to go. So.
Well, I think I'm probably in the minority opinion here, but I find myself agreeing with Vice Chair Ray. As times change, there'll probably be a fee for using cash. And to handle cash, and there'll be people they're saying we're gonna have to charge you a fee for using cash. Maybe it'll be 20 years from now, 15 years from now, but I use a Bob Dylan quote, the times they are changing, and pretty soon there'll be credit card and debit cards will be the norm, and it'll be more cost prohibitive to use cash, which is, I mean, I can see that happening in the next 15, 20 years, but you know, right now we're looking at the rear as a whole of about 90K a year. So we do need to get some sort of policy and some sort of implementation so that we can make our departments whole, that they can do that. But any other thoughts from commissioners on this particular policy? Treasurer Whitener and then corporate counsel. Actually, I'll go to corporate counsel first because she'll tell me if I'm doing something illegal.
No, Chair, thank you. I plan to look into this a little bit further and will likely render an opinion that I'll provide to the board. My base understanding in looking at this so far is the authority to charge the fee. One of the concerns of the clerk's office is they can't change statutory fees, and that is probably correct in terms of the item they're charging for. So say, for example, if you're charging $15 for the marriage certificate and that is set by statute, you can't modify that. But that's not what you're charging for when you charge the convenience fee. What you're charging for there is a service that the county is providing by allowing the use of credit card fee, which is authorized and comes from the board's actual statutory authority to set fees. So it's a different thing. It's not as if you've actually raised the price of marriage certificates because that's set by statute. You're asking them to pay for a service they're receiving.
So it'd be a
that would be
fee.
the distinction. Yeah. And that's why the policy cites to your authority to set a type of fee.
Okay.
So, but I'm going to formalize it and confirm. So.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer Whitener.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Chair Pro Tem, and Commissioners. I just want to provide a little bit of background just because of my direct interface with the cash deposits, check deposits, and credit card deposits the county receives. A lot of conversation has happened where it seems like we think that check deposits are free. They're not. My office budgets our bank fees for the primary depository for PNC, and it's about $100,000 a year. And a large portion of that is processing check deposits and cash deposits. Those are not free. And not only are they not free, check deposits are less reliable. Checks bounce. We've all had that experience of receiving a rubber check. I have probably had that experience the most out of people standing here. So it is a significant issue when we receive checks that we have to wait for those funds to process into our accounts. They're not immediate. Credit cards, the deposit happens that day, the next day, or the next, depending on holidays and whatnot. So there's a convenience for the customer, sure, but there's also a convenience and an availability of those funds for the county that should be counted into this calculus. Check deposits also are not free, not only in the actual bank fees, the money that goes out that we cut a check to PNC every year for, but also in terms of staff time. My office and departments across this county spend a significant amount of man hours processing, collating, inputting, and then transferring checks from one department to mine, and then from my department to the bank. This is a significant, it's not a burden. I'm going to say it's a burden. It's part of our job. We do it, proudly, but it is something that should be taken into the understanding. I will say I am personally against charging the credit card fee on delinquent tax transactions. Delinquent tax transactions are usually made by people who are already struggling, and adding a 3% or a flat fee to those payments could put those people in a situation that is the difference between being able to save their home and not being able to save their home. I don't want somebody to have a 3% fee be the difference between having a roof over their head or not. And so I will budget to absorb those fees. It's also my personal belief that the administrative fees that are baked in by state statute and the interest that's baked in by state statute to the delinquent tax process is intended to cover those fees and fees like it. And so if this policy passes, I will do everything I can to save the delinquent taxpayers from having to bear that burden. Because I wholeheartedly believe that it could make the difference in some cases. I just wanted to provide some background, Chair, because I do have hands-on experience with this. And it's something that's very close to my office.
And you brought up a kind of a quick question. We've got, 100K in bank or credit card fees that we're paying at the county. 10K is to the parks. It sounds like 8K is to the clerk's office. I'd assume, because of just the large and the size of the transactions, a large portion of that remaining 80,000 or so would be your office in the credit card fees. Am I right in that assumption? Do you know how much you absorb in your credit card fees?
That would be I would assume so. I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but we accept credit cards at many departments, in this county. Anybody who interfaces with the public and takes payments, essentially. So it's well spread out. My office happens to be the one that congregates a lot of them because we're the depositor. We are the ones who interface with the bank most often.
So to get to the vice chair's kind of point and comment, if the treasurer's office is going to bake, then this is probably a question for administration. If the treasurer's office is going to bake those into their costs anyway, we're probably this policy is going to probably just, Angeline?
The treasurer's office is subject to the financial policies of the county. And so if the county determines, based on legal advice, that they cannot absorb fees to the benefit of individuals, that would apply all around. So they would have to charge the fees as well.
So then we would be forced to, Commissioner Morale.
Is there a way, if that happens, that you could give a discounted rate? To have a fund to say, well,
I would need to have that argument with counsel.
oh,
I don't know is the long and short of the answer there. That would be a discussion. I want you to know which side I'd be fighting on. But yeah.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hupper.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with what you're saying. I don't want to see anybody go homeless, but every time we put a tax on the taxpayer, there's a potential for that to happen. This is talking about a convenience fee that if I write you a check and send it to you, I guess maybe we should look at some other bank other than PNC, because the banks that we're using in some of our other areas charge us nothing for checks. And I just deposited a whole bunch of them today from the community I work for. So I would strongly support, I'd love to see us do something, but I don't think the taxpayers should be funding everybody else's convenience fee. If you want to use a credit card, fine. And if they have to start using a fee for cash, I guess we're going to do that. But I think that's our stable denomination that we can currently use. The credit card is a convenience. When I use it, I have to pay a fee for it. And I guess I kind of feel that I don't want to put more burden on the rest of the taxpayers, because we could put them out of their home too by them having to fund us supporting those people using a credit card for convenience. I don't know how many people, I don't know if there's any way to document it, but I think it's important that we not put any more burden on the taxpayer than we already do. It's why I don't like more taxation. I don't like more regulation, because that just puts people out of their homes. And I am sympathetic with your thought that I don't want to put people out of their homes. I also don't think that the rest of the taxpayers want to get put out of their homes for having to pay for everybody else's convenience fee. So I guess I don't agree with this. I think there's a policy, we should abide by it. If they're going to use a credit card, that's great. Makes it easier. Yes, I have a business too, and it's great to get the credit cards because they come in the next day and you're golden. But we still have to pay a fee for it. It's baked in. We have to charge 3% when somebody uses their credit card. People say, yeah, no problem. We understand. because it costs us, costs your businesses, it costs the homeowner. I get it, but that's why I use cash and I write checks. I don't use my credit card unless I absolutely have to. And credit cards are getting people in a lot of trouble too nowadays, but that's another argument for another day. But I guess my concern is that the taxpayer is having to fund people using a credit card for convenience. Thank you.
I guess what we're getting into now is a philosophical conversation, but before we even get to the implementation of this, sort of a philosophical conversation of whether or not we should be implementing a credit card fee at all. And I've heard from both sides on this. I think before we even get to this credit card policy, I'd like to get at least a consensus from the board of whether or not that this fee is something that we want to be charged, as Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler stated, or as Vice Chair Ray stated, that why are we charging this fee to, why don't we absorb it within the budget and just budget it appropriately to all the departments that are doing it. So I'd like to kind of just go around the horn and see where people feel on that. I've heard from Commissioner Ray and Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, so it's 1-1 now.
It's 2-1.
2 to, yeah. So 2-1. But I to absorb these fees. Now I will say, you guys, I think that if we do absorb these fees internally, I think this is something that we should be looking at and keeping this policy so that we can take a look every year and seeing if this is something that we need to do as a revenue sort of generator to the county in order to capture the cost of service. One of the questions I had really quick for corporate counsel is the technology fee that's in this proposal, that you feel comfortable that being statutorily okay with the fee for service provisions?
Chair Taylor, so the technology fee schedule in there, unfortunately, I don't know a lot about how it's being used currently within the county. This is all existing language. So currently, they're required to charge a fee. The technology fee, if they choose to do that, has to be as set on the schedule, and the board is the entity that sets that amount. And just kind of on a side note, I think it would be important to figure out how the technology fee, at least for me, is being used and by whom and where it's being done, because it's different than a convenience fee is my understanding. But also I would just recommend to the board not, until we have sort of a legal opinion and determination on whether or not we can even absorb those costs. And my understanding right now is I don't believe we can budget for those and absorb them when they're for the benefit of an individual to receive a service. So I want to kind of do that research before we even go down that path.
How about this for administration? What do you guys feel until we get more information on this? Can we table this until 2 weeks and then is that an appropriate time, corporate counsel, is that okay with everybody on the board? We bring this back up in 2 weeks and we get a chance to think about our philosophical sort of dilemma of whether or not we charge this percentage. Administrator.
And Chair, I appreciate indulging me for a moment, but I do want to clarify the current policy that is in front of you has existing language in the policy in place today that was approved back in 2022, effective 2023. That language stipulates that departments, and we've communicated this multiple times and met with departments multiple times, explained to them that they are to be charging the convenience fee. That is existing language, as Commissioner Morales has already articulated. So departments are supposed to be charging that now. That's why you see circuit court, district court, they charge all of these admin fees, things like that. They're recovering the cost, right? Parks are recovering the cost. There are other departments that met with us when the email was sent out in October of 2022 to all departments articulating that the fee is supposed to be charged. Explaining to them that they need to either get with their credit card vendor to charge that fee, or they need to increase the cost of particular items. So if you look at, for example, the clerk's office, because that's who spoke tonight, a merit certificate, say that costs $15. well, here, let's say this. So in your credit card terminal, if it has that capability, what you would do if you're using a credit card, you would make the charge for that $15 rather than it's say $13 fee. If you're paying in cash in the terminal, you would select that option for cash and then you would charge them $13. That's how you would pay for that conveniency. That's how we would absorb, that's how we would recover the cost. It's not the actual merchant charging the fee, but we should be able to have the ability to stipulate what the cost of the good is. So if you're paying by credit card in your terminal, you would click, they're paying by credit card, that merit certificate is now $15 rather than the cash or check $13. That's how you would do it. We've stipulated that many times. And so that policy that is before you tonight, just for review, not for approval, already stipulates that now for 2023. We didn't change that language for 2023. It's just rather clarifying it based on statute that if you are to be using credit cards, you have to comply with these things. So I wanted to put that out there because our responsiveness was called into question. I wanted to ensure that the board knew that we are very responsive.
Okay. Okay, the question I had, I guess, so with our current vendor, Michigan Retailers, they have the ability to do that, or they do not have the ability to do that? Commissioner Morales.
So my understanding is that the system can't do it, but we could add to whoever's computers or whatever that billing system looks like, miscellaneous $3 charge fee. So that's the only thing even if the vendor can't do it, we could do it, correct? Just by implementing this as an additional charge when we click credit or whatever, is that something?
Yeah.
Like when they're invoicing, you can put.
That is our belief, but we are, we probably need to look at, again, like I said, vendors to where things are a little more transparent and easy to easier to implement and apply off of many different methods of payment receipt. And I give you an example. And the reason why we're in here and add the context for the later conversation is that a big part of the consideration is around accessibility for folks to receive benefits. Not everyone can come down and pay by cash, right? So in order to do online transactions, you have to do ACH, sometimes loading up with accounts, and then you gotta, and then credit cards becomes critical in terms that everyone can participate in the government service. So, part of it is also just increasing our ability to reach more people. So it is a strategic thing, not disincentivizing the use. So kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what the treasurer had to say, but implementation is different than policy, right? Our vendors, and they're our partners, our vendors as partners need to be able to work with us through statutory limitations that may happen. And then there are other vendors that can do it better. And so we ran into, and this is just again, recap is that, yes, we discussed this early in the year, but there was a technical issue protecting people's private information. It was a security issue that took several months for the vendor to overcome, to where we're finally at a place where our existing vendor could potentially take over. We were not there before. We were not there before. So now that we're there, let's line these up next to each other and see how this can be accomplished and what's better, not just on the transaction side, but also on our reconciliation side, right? The reconciliation of accounts is also an important step to this, and that's why the integration was key. So not all vendors that departments have worked with can do all that. So administratively, while we get policy together, implementation is another animal that we have to work through things that were known and unknown. And so, yes, Michigan Retailers is who the clerk is using. That's not what everyone else is using. So the county has a contract, that's true. It's not enforced on everyone, right? The treasurer is using BSNA.
Michigan Retailers is a county contract. Everybody's using that.
No, but what I'm saying is for the credit card processing, that part of it, that's not what everyone is using. Yeah.
I think it, and correct me if I'm wrong, does it
Mhm.
have to go with our like financial munis system, or
Mhm.
is that part of the?
Well, yeah, a big part of it is that transition. So in the beginning if you remember, in the beginning of the year, we were just coming off of the end of that transition. We had not rolled out the credit card processor. That hadn't happened yet. And so as we were endeavoring down that path, we ran into an issue with PCI compliance. It had taken several months to where now we're at a point now from the hardware that would be provided with Munis and their cashiering option, we would be able to move forward. We just have not implemented it throughout the county yet. So the first department that is moving into that system is the airport.
Currently, right now, as of this year, the only department that has been implementing credit card fees as of now has been the Parks Department. Is that correct?
Yes, and I
So-
can double check with the elements of the courts, but yeah.
So as we transition, then maybe the Parks Department or whoever comes the first to implement this system could then maybe provide guidance to the other departments on how
Absolutely.
we're going to how they could implement that sort of
Absolutely.
structure. Okay. Okay, well, I think in 2 weeks, I'm good to go. A lot of my questions were answered, but I think if we give 2 weeks for corporate counsel to clarify some stuff, and we can have this on our agenda in 2 weeks. Sound good with everybody? Okay. Okay. The financial policy golden ratio. Kevin, do you want to take this? Or do you want me to? Like, I don't want to go at.
Yeah, sure. I could take this one, Chair. So this was a policy that was discussed as part of the 2024 budget process. So, really in layman's terms, what it stipulates is that any unexpected or unanticipated revenue, and we kind of talked about this when we were going through the process of, like, for example, the interest income from investments, or if we receive extra cannabis tax revenue. then we have a policy that guides us on how we allocate those dollars for either board priorities, our fleet, CIP, things like that. So the policy before you tonight for just some feedback and consideration on kind of stipulates that allocation schedule, and those can change as desired by the board. So we're happy to answer any questions on that.
And I will start with, I think that this sort of idea is a great one, in that we're going to be having a lot of, whether it be carryover, whether it be increase in cannabis tax. I'm assuming the big one is going to be carryover. How we allocate and anticipate that. As far as board priorities, I just wanted to make a quick statement so administration is not caught off guard. One of my personal board priorities is going to be, we have not given a cost of living increase to any of our retirees in 22 years. That, to me, I think needs to be something that as we go through our carryover and we have our board priorities, I think we should take a good hard look at, a potential of what it would cost for a small percentage of increase, what that contribution rate would be into our retirees, what that would cost. But for me personally, that's going to be one of my priorities. So people want to, but does anybody have any questions on this as far as the overall, the 20%, the 30% on the policy? I had a couple minor things, super minor, but I don't even know. Practice, it says must support 25 million cash flow requirement for 2023, but then it also says 20 to 25 million in the unrestricted, which is, in an $85 million, it's close to the same number, but it's a little bit different on those numbers. Probably making sure that that's, the policy. I tend to think that 20 to 25% of your general operating grows, that number is going to grow. But 20 to 25% is healthy. 20% is healthy. 25% is healthy. If you're under that, or if you're over that, then you start to get into the range of where you're either have too much in excess or you've got to really watch yourself because something could happen and then you could find yourself in a bad situation. And then as you mentioned earlier, I didn't know we get our cannabis tax until March of the following year, and grants don't, a lot of those don't come in until November, October. So a lot of those, costs and you do get cost of services and those that do come in, but your property taxes aren't going to come in until June, July. So I understand the 20 to 25%. I really do. And I think that as a board, we need to adhere to that. I do, when we get over 25%, that's when I'm going to get antsy and start saying, hey, we need to get this money back into the community, as you're probably already well aware. But those are my thoughts on that. What are commissioners' thoughts on the golden ratio? Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. To me, this seems to make a lot of sense, and to the same extent that you, I think, were the guy leading the charge to not anticipate all salaries being paid the whole year through. That if we plan for 80% or so, that probably is where it's going to come in, and based on history, if nothing else.
I would
that
say
we
proponent,
do
not
have
leading.
turnover, and some jobs sit open for, a couple, 3 months or longer. And that means that we're not paying out salaries at 100% to 100% of the employees. And I do think it makes sense to try to, we want to be fiscally conservative, but we don't need to be fiscally silly.
Completely agree. And another thing that Kevin led the charge on, to kudos to him, was the anniversary dates for when we were doing step increases. It always used to say, okay, it's 4%, but people's anniversary dates happen at different points out of the year. So it's not that full 4%, but we would budget 4% in the anticipation that we'd have even more carryover. But that was kind of the how we funded our capital. And I think having a more deliberate approach to that, I think, is going to behoove the citizens of this county for sure. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, looks like we're going with this one. Per diem policy, is that pay grade X adjustment X scale? Yeah. Pay grade is next.
Yeah, make sure I have the right screen up. So the X-band, this is the policy that related to what we discussed last time, that there are certain positions within the same title, an attorney one throughout the entire county. There may be an attorney one position in the, actually specifically attorney two in prosecutors, that you just can't retain them for that particular job, or it could be a jail nurse, as opposed for a nurse one, nurse two everywhere else in the county, a nurse in the jail, you can't retain them. Right now what this would do is fully acknowledge those particular differences, maintain the structure of the compensation system by establishing the ability for an X band. So it's the midway point between a step. So in the case, if there were a market-based position study, because we're far out of range out of all positions, everyone would go up, but the folks in that X band would get that that in-between step. So it allows for that amongst, once all things are considered equal, that this particular position would pay a premium based off of the difficulties of that particular job condition, and that would have to be established through the criteria and the policy. By policy, if the request was denied, they could appeal to administration with some additional information.
Questions from commissioners? The only comment I had, Commissioner Heffler, is to add juvenile home employees to those. I had a commissioner comment on that, but that would be the only comment I had for priority lists. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hepler, did you have something? No. Okay. I think we're good to go. IT infrastructure. This was something that I added. I'll be very brief, and I wanted to get the feedback from the county board on this. Typically, most IT departments have a review process, a third-party outside review process that comes in and looks. Is there duplications? Is there redundancies? Are we severely underfunded on our infrastructure side? Do we have the right number of personnel? And do we have, adequate security? It's sort of not an audit. I put it as kind of try to talk a little bit about an IT audit. That was probably inappropriate language. What I'm looking for is more of the IT overview assessment that could come back to the county board and say, you guys would save a lot of money if you did this with your system, or you really are underfunded here, or because right now our information is we're getting, and we're building a new system, we're building a system kind of as we go. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, but that's basically what we're doing. And having the ability of just an outside person, I'm looking at the neighborhood of about a $20,000 to $25,000. And I know that this board is not always a fan of studies and getting people, third-party assessments. But I think this one, if we kept the costs low, would be worth it to go put out to an RFP for groups to come in and look at our IT and say, as Commissioner Gissler said, there's two sides to every coin, accessibility and security, and they both have to be, reasonably operable. But what does this board think about that? Is this something that they think that this is something that's needed, or is this something that we should wait till next year? Maybe a couple of years. I need to hear your opinions. Commissioner Gissler.
Well, I was indicating that Jeff had his hand up, but no, I think it's time to get on with it. I think we've seen examples, and I hate to use this room as an example where technologically we're poor. I don't want to indict IT because of this room. I don't know if IT had anything to do with it, but when you can only have two mics on at the same time without getting feedback galore, that's not right. So I think we need to maybe take a look at virtually all of our technologies.
And I don't want it to be looked at as like something, this is probably going to be more often than not helpful, probably very likely to be helpful to IT, and their thing is certainly not any sort of swipe or anything to what they've been able to accomplish with such, limited resources and kind of what we've asked them to build as they've gone. So they've done a tremendous job. I'm looking at this as kind of a third set of eyes to just give us a comprehensive opinion. Commissioner Morales.
So y'all know I hate studies. I think IT is competent enough to know what needs to be done. Can we rely on the director, or I don't know, the ED to say, hey, this is where we need help in these areas due to, what happened when we're trying to do interviews via Zoom, or when we get knocked off? Like, do we have to get an RFP out? Can't our IT team figure this out based on their expertise and what other new technologies? I mean, don't we just prescribe the journals and, stay in the know, or send them to classes? I'd rather invest in them going to workshops or conferences to bring back what we need to be sufficient, or lean on our partners. The city of Kalamazoo don't have no problems. I mean, they're streaming on Facebook and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm really opposed to these studies. I think the money can be used either within those departments or given back to our employees for compensation.
Commissioner Hepler.
Thank you, Chair. I too am not fond of studies. I do feel that we need to figure out what we need and what we don't need. I have no problem with that. I tend to kind of collaborate with Commissioner Morales on this thought but I hate to see us putting money into things and funding something, and then we're having to charge our departments more money that they need to run their department versus, putting it back into the prosecutor having enough people to do their work, or the sheriff, or the health department, or, our clerk's office, or our treasurer's office, funding a study. But we do need to look at our system and figure out, and it may be, but I guess I'm kind of curious as to the cost. What's the cost going to be? Who's going to do it? There's a number of things here. If it was minimal, I probably would be more in favor of it, but if it's going to be expensive, I think we should reconsider or something, but I'm just concerned. I don't want to charge our departments anymore. Again, we're already draining them for charge cards and technology and their phones and everything. So, and our IT department does a great job. I mean, if I can get on the computer, they're miracle workers. So, and I've been hitting it every time. So, thank you.
And I would certainly would look for a smaller cost to that. I mean, the way that IT is funded mostly now is through costs from the departments they pay into based on the number of users and yada yada. I guess to answer Commissioner Morales's question, the reason that I came to this conclusion was motivation from the source. I like third-party sources that aren't trying to sell me anything, or they're just trying to give me free information. A lot of the time, you're going to get information from somebody that's trying to sell you a system, or somebody that's going to try to sell you, some sort of operating or something else. Whereas if you get just an honest assessment of this is what you should be doing, even our own internal department. I mean, you ask any department head, or they're going to tell you they want more money, they need more money, they need more staff. But having a third party say, yeah, they do, or no, they don't, or what they need is infrastructure, or they need this or this. I don't know. That's kind of where I'd come to this conclusion. But if the board is not, wants to wait a little bit on this, I'm good with that as well. Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, to sort of respond to Jeff and Monteith and their concern about costs, maybe we should approach the universities locally and see if this might not be a postdoc kind of project for 2 or 3 of their people to jump into at a very minimal cost to the county. They're certainly, I would think, on the cutting edge of things that can and can't be done and should and shouldn't be done. I'd be willing to at least examine that.
Well, sounds like Commissioner Wheeler. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. I just don't want to put the cart before the horse here, and that maybe we should have a conversation with IT and sit down with them too. I mean, these people in IT are smart and they know the system better than any of us. And so maybe they do see flaws in the system that, hey, if we had this, we could fix this, no problem. So I think maybe that's the first step, is to have that conversation. And then if they're like, we don't know what else, but something needs to be done, maybe then we can do an assessment down the road.
And I think part of that would be, it wouldn't be entirely your thing, but it'd be a majority of it would be the CIP process, for instance. There was a lot of requests, and the budget process. I mean, I think they requested 20, or it was a lot of positions, and we funded a few of them. But how many of those positions that we didn't fund are absolutely crucial? How many of those positions that, do we know what, I know they put on their priorities 1 through 10, and we've got those priorities down, but yeah, I mean, I from what I'm gathering from commissioners, it's hold off a little bit, maybe wait and see if we can do this cheaper through academia. But at this point, communicate with IT and see if we want a third set of eyes, talk to academia to see if they can provide it for very cheap reduced cost. Am I getting that sort of consensus here? Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, if you'd like to, can you state your name and
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and the board. I'm Kurt Penela with Carhu Cyber. We'd be interested in that work. There's a couple, yeah. Well, there's a couple things to consider.
Yes, well, he would be free to make public comment. I caution him against basically prejudicing yourself against a competitive RFP process. So, just, you can certainly talk to the board for your 3 minutes. I shall
Yeah, I guess
refrain, but I would just be careful.
To avoid any conflict of interest, if we were to go down this road, it sounds like we're looking more at academia than down this road. But if we were going to go down this road, it would make more sense if you talked at public comment, or otherwise you would eliminate your ability to bid, if that makes sense.
Okay, I just wanted to do like a value proposition, not necessarily service specific or even going with us, just to help understand. But if that's outside the scope, I'm happy to sit back down.
Yeah, if you could wait, we've got a public comment coming up right after. Actually, no, next meeting at the 7 o'clock. So in 1 hour, we have a public comment, but I'd hate to put your firm or whatever group in jeopardy for speaking on it before we've even decided if that makes sense.
Absolutely. My apologies, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next is financial policy per diem policy.
Bear with me 1 second. This is the most I've spoken to you on a long time. Try, thank you. Yeah, this one is getting a little low. Thank you. I appreciate you. Your service to the people. Thank you. Yeah, so the per diem policy, what we're actually asking for is a one-time exemption to this policy. If you look in the detail, there's a 90-day window in order to, you really didn't have to do that.
Be careful. Talk about per diem, right?
Yeah.
You were talking about per diems.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. In the policy, you see it has a 90-day window in which submit payments. In the beginning of the year, we had some challenges with certain groups. There were some munis issues, and so and then some administrative challenges. And you gonna add something?
Come on, Kevin, rock, paper, scissors.
I'm gonna hand this over to the administrator.
Okay, so, yeah, so Deputy Administrator Smith reminded us, we have two per diem topics this evening. So at the 7 o'clock, the topic that Deputy Administrator Cole was referring to is actually on the 7 o'clock. But we can, yeah, so the topic for this evening for the Committee of the Whole is related to clarifying whether the board would like to, and I think we still need to discuss with the Corporation Council on this, but right now, the way that the practice has been implemented is that when advisory bodies of the board meet without quorum, they are not compensated. So we have not been paying that out. There's been a question as to whether we should be paying volunteers of the community on advisory bodies for meeting without a quorum, but they're still getting business done in preparation for the meeting that would occur in the future. We've had advisory bodies that have met. Like I said, we haven't been paying them, but we wanted to have that discussion with the board. If the board desires to pay them, we can go down that road and kind of research if that's permissible to pay advisory bodies meeting without a quorum, but a specific number of individuals are meeting, they're getting business done in advance of a meeting, or if this body wants to continue not compensating those members that are meeting without a quorum. That's essentially what we're asking tonight, just to garner some clarity. Like I said, for clarification, we do not pay them currently. If there is no quorum, they don't get paid. They only are compensated when they meet with a quorum.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess I'm not familiar with that policy. Is it in our bylaws that says that if there's no quorum, you don't get paid? Or if you don't attend, you don't get paid? I think that's where we need to start and make an amendment there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the purpose of the discussion, Commissioner
it.
Morales, is it's currently a financial policy. So per diems is a financial policy and it stipulates which advisory bodies are compensated for meetings. It's just not even clear or it doesn't stipulate within the policy if an advisory body is meeting
Right.
without a quorum, if they're compensated.
That's-
So that's
that's what
kind
I'm
of our,
saying.
that's kind of our question. This is very unclear in the current policy.
So well, not really a follow-up, but I think that sometimes we don't, like, if I can't make a meeting, I'm usually texting chair or yourself, but we don't know, I'm not texting the whole board. And if I'm driving somewhere and I'm, doing my part as, my public servant duties, then I think that the public should be compensated for coming. Because a lot of times people still continue on with the discussion, even though they don't have quorum, you just can't vote and, make decisions at that point. But if they're gonna sit there and still handle business, I think, from my perspective, I think they should be compensated.
Delu. Yeah, I totally agree. They shouldn't be penalized for other people not showing up, and they're volunteers to begin with, and they come and they're there. And I've been to meetings where the quorum hasn't been present, but we've still spent an hour talking. So I definitely think they should be compensated. Commit Vice Chair Ray.
I'm just gonna have to say that I disagree. We do appreciate volunteers. The purpose of the per diem was not for folks to want to sign up to volunteer to get $30. So, I think if you don't have a quorum, for me personally, if there's no quorum, I'm leaving. I don't even want to pretend like we're doing business because we can't do business. So it's really a choice to stay there if you decide to stay there with no quorum. So I absolutely don't think that we should be paying folks when there's no quorum. I do have a question though about one part of the policy where it talks about county employees who serve on these committees shouldn't get paid. There are some county employees who have been appointed by the board, not like a staff role, that are serving on some of these committees. Are they not being paid? Because they should be.
I suppose I would need an example of which one that would be. I think we would need to go back and review, I guess we'd have to review statutes. I think that's why the policy kind of speaks to, to the extent possible as eligible by statute, they would be, but we'd have to look into that one specifically. Currently, she's not compensated as a county employee, so.
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you. And so say this passes. I know for me coming from Texas Township here, I would be all the way on 10,000 if every time I came there wasn't a quorum. And I know that's happened plenty of times with the DEI committee. Are we looking to retro that pay, or we're looking to start a new policy and then moving forward if this happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before you tonight at the 7 PM meeting is an exception to this per diem policy. Currently in the policy, to sort of answer your question in a roundabout way, it stipulates that per diems are supposed to be submitted within 90 days, 90 calendar days prior from the meetings that had occurred. We're putting forward an exception to that policy to allow for all of 2023 to be captured. We can't go back other fiscal years. That's just not allowed by right. But from January, yeah. So we have that policy exception for tonight to allow advisory bodies to do that by a certain deadline, which would be probably, we're anticipating the 19th of December. But yeah.
So on ISK's board, in every meeting, there is a attendance sheet, and for those folks who receive the per diem, they have a big old Monteith cannot receive nothing on that, but I ain't lying. It's like bright. Yeah. And so on that, like every meeting, just so people don't have to submit 90 days, can we have something in place that they're turned, they give us folders like this, and in every meeting we sign and they pick up the folder and that's how they enter it. So those folks could get paid, as opposed to, and if some people don't want the money or don't fill it out and say I'm passing, we could acknowledge that as well.
Vice Chair Ray?
Thank you, Chair. I just have an additional question to that point. The policy currently states in order to receive the per diem, you have to stay for the entire meeting from start to finish. If it's not a quorum and I decide to leave because we can't do business, and so everybody that stays will get paid and I won't, although I still came. So I think this just kind of opens up a whole nother door to go down another road when it's like we were just trying to compensate people for their time. Why do we want to keep kind of create more spaces for people to find more reasons to collect $30? Like either you're here, you're not here, we have a meeting, or we don't. But that would be my question though. If I have to be here the whole meeting, do I have to stay with no quorum in order to get paid if everybody else is?
Commissioner Wheeler.
I kind of agree with Vice Chair. You know, some of the stuff that I'm on, we have really good communication, and we know by noon that day if there's going to be a quorum or not. And there's an email sent out to everybody that, hey, there's not a quorum, the meeting's canceled. Sorry, guys. So, you know, I've never shown up to one of my meetings and been like, oh, surprise, there's not a quorum. Stuff happens, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I've been really lucky so far, I guess. But I just, maybe we need to encourage a better system of communication, because I'll tell you what, Patrick has it down on Public Arts Commission.
Okay, so Commissioner Gissler.
Yes, as long as we're talking about advisory boards, per diems, I'd like to put into the hopper that as we progress, regardless of how we go about it, I would like to see a number included every time we talk about it, indicating what % of the potential money to be paid out has actually been paid out. It seems to me during the budgeting process, we talked about it might be $45,000 or $46,000, and it wasn't even 10. So a whole lot of people are indeed volunteering, and it's not worth it to them to, you know, of course, now maybe it's $30, so, you know, maybe they'll fall all over themselves. But I'd like to see that number, you know, what % of the people are taking advantage of that opportunity? And maybe many of them aren't. They are purely volunteers.
I think we budget as if everybody's going to do 100%, and we probably get about 20%, roughly about 8,000.
Seems to me that was the number.
Two questions I think that we have just really quick. One on the one that's on the 7 o'clock. The submission deadline for all these catch-up payments must be submitted by October 31st, which has already happened. How can we pass that today if the submission deadline has already been passed? No, this is the one that we're going to be voting on the consent agenda.
We would just need, yeah, we would amend it to, I think we're anticipating December 19th. We just need to amend that. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then the second question I had was, I guess we're in disagreement on the board, so I need to get like kind of a show of hands of how many people. We'll start with this, the quorum. If quorum is not achieved by an advisory board, should they still get compensation? Can I do a show of hands, Corporation Counsel, or is that? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sorry, but what if the correspondence doesn't come out? Because obviously we have a system that's in place, but sometimes when we come to gun violence, we don't have a quorum, right? And the message didn't go out. It's Tammy reminded me, like, where you at? And I'm like, I'm across the street. I'm coming over now. So like, what if we don't get that message to know that it's canceled? I think in that instance, there's need to be some clauses in there than just to make that flat, you know. And then for the people to Gisler, he was like, people are not turning in their monies. I think as we get younger bodies on here, we're gonna start seeing the difference. Most of them people are like, I'm a volunteer, I really don't need it. But as we start getting these younger folks in here that are committing to these boards, I think we're gonna see more people wanting that voucher. So I think we need a couple clauses for the communication route.
I don't think you need any clauses. If you show up, you're entitled to it. Even if you show up and you don't stay, you plan your day around this meeting. Your meeting's at 1, so about 12 o'clock, you're like, all right, I gotta get ready to go to this meeting. You drive down wherever and you're there. I think you've earned it. That's just my opinion.
Okay, well, Commissioner Gisler.
Yeah, I can only cite a personal experience that strikes real home to me. I sit on the Comstock Township DDA committee, and it's required by law that one commissioner sit there. So I try to make it every meeting I possibly can. Well, Steve Deisler's the head. He's I guess he's the internal guy, but he could be the selected leader of the chair of that committee. And boy, he beats the drum. He sends out emails and texts and phone calls a week ahead and then a few days ahead. And he says, I need to know if you're going to be there. We don't want everybody else showing up and there's not enough of us. And I think we need to think a little bit about the leadership of some of the groups. Somebody gets elected the chair, well, do they really have an idea what's expected of the chair? And that's to beat the bushes to come up with enough people to make the actions of the board mean something. That's just a thought.
My formal corporation counsel advice is that we operate under Robert's rules, so it should be motion second if you're looking for something, or consensus. But
I apologize for interrupting, but if you're speaking, you need to please use your microphone.
thank you, Dina. Appreciate it. Yeah, so the reason we amended the bylaws is so that we could get clarity in our minutes for the cow and also direction for staff. And so in this case, it would be really helpful to, know whether or not I lost my total train of thought when you told me to turn on the mic. I apologize. I don't remember what it was, so I'm going to
Us older folks really appreciate it when somebody like you does that.
The retroactivity or the one-time policy that is in our consent agenda, everybody is okay. I figured that everybody would be okay with that because that's just saying that since these rules weren't established, not every department got all their in time for 90 days. So we're doing it one time only. You've got until December 19th to do it, and then we'll pay you retroactive for any time in 2023 because we didn't have a system completely in place. So that being said, is everybody, that's on our consent agenda. Now, the second issue we have is whether or not we pay per diems with non-meetings that don't have quorum. That one, I think, in order to get clarity on that, I'm going to need a motion from preferably at least looked over by corporate counsel to make sure that when we go into our 7 o'clock, we can vote either we pay it or we don't, and then we can be done with it. Is that kind of the consensus of the board where we're at? Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session? Vice Chair Ray?
Lots of meetings going on right now. All right, I move that the board go into closed session as allowed by MCL 15.268. One band, one sound. No, 16H, 1H of the Open Meetings Act to discuss material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state of or federal statute, specifically the written legal opinion of the County's Corporation Council dated November 20th, 2023.
Motion and support, roll call?
Commissioner DeLu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, Commissioner Morales, Vice Chair Ray, Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes.
7 yes.
Chair will entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Support. All
push that, red light.
All right, I'm gonna call the November 21st, 2023 regular Board of Commissioners meeting in Kalamazoo County to order. First on the agenda is invocation reflection, and I believe, is it Commissioner Hepler? Is it? Nope. Dale. Commissioner DeLue.
I am delegating my responsibility to somebody much more qualified than I. So I've invited Mark Cry from the Reformed Church of America.
My tie with the with Kalamazoo, the county, and with the city was that I served Bethany Reformed Church, which is straight down Burdick Street. And I was there for about 10 years. My wife and I loved Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo County so much that we decided to retire here. So that's why I'm back. And this is the first time I'm doing anything. Let's have a prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for the gathering that is here. I thank you for the willingness of these people to care for the community, care for the county, care for the people that are here, and for the businesses that are here, and for those that love this county. I give you thanks for these people. I pray now that you will be with them, help them to share their thoughts, give them wisdom in knowing how to create a society that is good for people all over the spectrum, so that those who have much can help those that have very, very little. And together we create a place that is a beautiful and safe place for our people. Thank you so much. This we pray. Amen. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner DeLue,
Here.
Commissioner Gisler,
Here.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler,
Here.
Commissioner Mazer is absent, Commissioner Morales, Vice Chair Ray,
Present.
Commissioner Strebs is absent, Chair Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Wheeler, here, 7 present.
And I will note that Commissioner Mazer and Commissioner Strebs has contacted me and said they would not be in attendance today. Proclamations. Commissioner DeLue, do you want to take us through proclamations? There's only one.
Yes, proclamation declaring November as Family Court Awareness Month.
I think you just move it and then somebody else said.
I move that approve this proclamation declaring November as Family Court Awareness Month.
Okay, motion and support. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner DeLue,
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, Commissioner Morales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ray, Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Yes.
7 yes.
Communications, Commissioner Gisler, do you want to take us through the two communications? I wish I was that good.
Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without Dale. Wexford County Resolution supporting Operation Green Light for veterans. And Livingston County Resolution preempting local control for solar wind developments. Anybody have anything else?
Chair knows of none. All right, next is approval of the minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the November 8th, 2023 draft committee of the whole and regular meeting minutes. Been moved and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All right, motion passes. Now we are at public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name and name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and the Board of Commissioners. My apologies for the interruption of due process earlier. So I'm with Carhu Cyber. We're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business from here in Michigan. I actually reside in Livingston County, but I work for Carhu Cyber, and we're serving a number of Michigan counties to assist them with their cybersecurity and IT needs. I come before you today to kind of hopefully shed some light on the need of an outside assessment of your IT infrastructure, so you're able to make informed risk decisions for the county and the constituents under your supervision. So the Carhu Cyber team is comprised of mostly former DoD personnel with years of experience serving against APT level threats, nation state actors, and things of that nature. So we're bringing a high level of talent on specifically cybersecurity, and having an outside assessment like this is going to have an unbiased opinion. We do it in the finance community, that an outside auditor performs that audit. They do it, he who builds the road is not tasked with securing it. It applies in all walks of industry. So our proposal is to bring in an outside auditor to help assess in an unbiased manner the current security posture, the risk posture of the county. So you guys are able to make those informed decisions on your current spend, your current risk management strategy, your current forecast, and your current IT needs. So some of the things that we would work to address is like solution overlap, where there might be security controls that are prohibiting a scalable and productive work environment. So we would look at identifying which controls are overlapping and which ones are prohibiting effective work here at the county. We'd be helping establish, working hand in hand with IT on all of this, but most importantly in establishing a long-term strategy to ensure that the county IT department and security needs are following the direction of the board. And then lastly is funding. I know that was raised as a concern in my brief interruption earlier. Funding, we have a relationship, pretty good relationship with Daniel Bordeaux. He's the cyber principal at the MMRMA. So we've been successful with other counties in getting grant funding for MFA, vulnerability assessment and training, all three of which potentially could be a viable option here at Kalamazoo County. Any questions?
Traditionally, we don't have back and forth, but I will, if you wanted to leave your name and number and email address, and if any commissioners had any questions, then they could contact you if that'll be okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next, any other citizens wishing to address the board? And we don't have any pre-recorded calls, correct? Do we have any? Yeah, we didn't. No pre-record. We didn't have any at our 4 o'clock meeting either. So.
Chair, it appears that we have Clerk Place with her hand
I think.
raised.
Yeah, I knew she was going to call. Okay, is she on?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Right. Maybe.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, Commissioners, Clerk, Register, Meredith Place. There was a lot of discussion at the 4 o'clock regarding the credit card policy. My apologies that I was not able to be there in person. I did send the leadership as well as administrative staff several questions related to the policy before the meeting as I saw it on the agenda. I am happy to come to the next meeting and make childcare arrangements so I can be there in person to fully articulate my questions and concerns. But I would like the board to really take a look at the policy specifically as it relates to both a bank fee, a processor fee, and then the technology fee. Currently, we are not able to pass on that processor merchant fee because our vendor Michigan Retailers, which is a vendor contract between the county and the vendor, not through my office. This is an existing contract that I was not aware I could even change. Does not, we have asked them several times, they do not allow us to pass on that customer bank merchant fee, which requires then the office to absorb it through our operational expenditures. And as has been shared before, we did not budget to have that expenditure because of this policy. We assumed that with the passage of the policy, that the vendor had already been contacted, and that this would, and as Commissioner Morales pointed out, the frustration, we are frustrated. And I believe that with frustration and with these questions, we can all come to a reasonable solution where we are all in compliance with the policy as set forth by the board. But I just wanted to make the record clear that my office has done everything we possibly can to be in compliance. However, we cannot just simply, if we can't pass on the fee, we can't just add a 3% fee onto statutory fees. That's not written anywhere, right? A 3% is an arbitrary fee that's not actually part of the policy. So again, I apologize I wasn't there in person. And I will be there at the next meeting so we can have that robust conversation. And again, I appreciate the board taking the time and allowing me to speak tonight. And I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family and friends. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew of no other calls other than that. Okay. Okay, then we are through public comment and we have consent agenda. Commissioner DeLu, do you want to take us through consent agenda?
I do, and I want to point out, this is the longest consent agenda of 2023 so far. Great timing on my part, and I feel bad for that lady that just called. Doesn't she have a husband that can help her? So, they're all 2023s under administration. 7049, request for approval of a budget transfer to Office of the Administrator, budget for training. 7103, request for approval of one-time exemption to the per diem policy. Under Board of Commissioners, request for approval to appoint Riley Lekomsky to the Land Bank Authority. 6997, request for the review and approval of Sector Strategies Employer-Led Collaborative Grant Modification Number 1 through Michigan Works. 7052, request for the review and approval of assessment year 22 to fiscal year 24 trade adjustment assistance, also Michigan Works. 7093, request for the review and approval of fiscal year 2024 partnership accountability through Training Hope, which is also Michigan Works. 7030, request for approval and signature of a 60-month lease for 2 Ricoh multifunction printers at the Judge Charles A. Pratt Justice Center. 6792, request for approval of position funding eliminations and creations for problem-solving court administrator position. 7055, request for approval of grant agreement with the State Court Administrative Office SWIFT Insurer Sanctions Probation Program, and for the Circuit Court Administrator Chad Kewish to serve as the authorizing official for the contract in the state of Michigan's DocuSign system. 7059, request for approval of grant agreement with the State Court Administrative Office Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, and for the Circuit Court Administrator Chad Kewish to serve as the authorizing official for the contract in the state of Michigan's DocuSign system. 7062, request for approval of grant agreement with the State Court Administrative Office Michigan Drug Court Grant Program, and for the Circuit Court Administrator Chad Kewish to serve as the authorizing official for the contract in the state of Michigan's DocuSign system. Under the Clerk's Office, 6990, request for approval and signature of a resolution to establish a Kalamazoo County Vital Records Scholarship Program. 7072, request for approval and signature of a contract with Printing Systems Incorporated. District Court, 6969, request for approval of grant award and contract with SCAO and to delegate authority for the court administrator to serve as the authorizing official to sign the contract. 7002, request for approval of grant award and contract with Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health and for the delegation of authority to the chief judge or their designated representative to sign the document electronically within the applicable electronic system. Under Equalization Department, 7035, request for approval of amended apportionment report. 7036, request for the adoption of the resolution to amend the 2023 resolution to apportion ad valorem taxes. 7092, request for approval of resolution to amend the resolution to levy. Finance, 6735, recommendation for approval of accounts payable and payroll disbursements. 7084, request for approval of a financial policy revision to the grant award and approval policy. 7071, request for approval of various budget adjustments and transfers. Health and Community Services, 6904, request for acceptance of Area Agency on Aging 3A Annual Implementation Plan contract. 6898, request for acceptance of Statement of Grant Award number 2024-1 to the Area Agency on Aging. 6921, request for acceptance of Statement of Grant Award number 2024-2 to the Area Agency on Aging. 6979, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with Advanced Health Pharmacy from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6981, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with City of Portage / Portage Zang Senior Center from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6982, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with Deaf Incorporated from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6985, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with Milestone Senior Services from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6983, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with the Ecumenical Senior Center from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6980, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with Advanced Health Pharmacy from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 6984, request for approval and signature of amendment number 1 with Lending Hands of Michigan Incorporated from the Senior Millage Fund balance. 7004, request for approval and signature of contract renewal with Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health. 7088, request for approval of a budget transfer with the American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds between the projects within the Veterans Service Office. Under Housing, 7000, request for approval of grant extension with the Local Initiatives Support Corporation. Human Resources, request for approval of a pay grade adjustment request, X scale policy. Parks and Expo, request for approval of a resolution to contribute toward the cost of Gordon Lake Improvement Project. Under Sheriff, 7085, request appointment of Community Corrections Advisory Board members for the 2023 to 2025 term. 6975, request for approval of position creation, Nurse 2 in the jail. 7005, request for approval of and signature on letter of understanding between the County of Kalamazoo and the Sheriff's Office, the employer, and the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Sergeants Association. And I move that this consent agenda be voted on as one item.
There is a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gissler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler,
Yes.
Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ray, Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu,
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, next, unfinished business and general orders, and we have to clear up on the per diems real quick. Do you have a motion for me? Do you want to give it to one of the Abby or Morales? You could read either one and we'll know the outcome of the other.
I move that the board amend the county financial policy for per diems to allow for the payment of per diems to eligible members of the board bodies who come to a meeting but no quorum is present, subject to approval as to forth by corporation council, which means no quorum is, they still get paid.
Okay, there is a motion and support, and yeah, as Commissioner Wheeler stated, this is a yes vote for this would be that we are paying for meetings that do not have quorum. A no vote would be no. Do anybody want to discuss this anymore? Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler.
Yes.
Commissioner Morales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ray,
No.
Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler.
No.
5 yes, 2 no.
Okay, so I think administration, you have the guidance on that one. Now, new business. This is a public hearing for Midlink Plan Amendment number 4. Who wants to take us into a public hearing? Commissioner Wheeler?
I'll make a motion that we go into the public hearing for Midlink Brownfield Plan Amendment number 4.
There's a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? All right, we are now in a public hearing for Midlink Brownfield Plan number 4. Anybody would like to speak?
Good evening, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Ray, Commissioners. My name is Rob Brittigan, President of Midlink Business Park. We're at 5200 East Cork Street, Kalamazoo. That's in Comstock Township. I want to thank you for your past support of the Midlink Brownfield Plan. It has helped to transform an abandoned General Motors stamping plant into a world-class business park and the home of currently 28 businesses. By passing this resolution before you tonight, you will provide an opportunity to continue the redevelopment efforts and the progress at the business park, including the Shupan project, their aluminum recycling project that is under construction. So again, I want to thank you and greatly appreciate your consideration of this Brownfield Plan Amendment tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for your consideration and time. My name is Philip Hahn. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Shupan and Sons. As many of you know, Kalamazoo has been home to Shupan for about 55 years, and we are very excited that the next part of our growth can be here. And we're thankful to the Midlink folks for providing the property for our new building, and we appreciate your consideration on the Brownfield Amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Gisler.
Yes, I apologize. I should know this. I've been around almost as long as Shupan has. Could you describe the Shupan business in, 50 words or less?
50 words might be tough, but Shupan got its start in industrial scrap. And over the past 50 years has grown into the business that processes all the cans that you take back to your local grocery stores under the Michigan deposit system. We have an aluminum plastic sales contract manufacturing business, and we buy and sell metal around the country and around the world with our brokerage business. So started out little bitty scrapyard in Kalamazoo and has turned into a business that employs about 650 employees, mostly around the Midwest and primarily in Michigan.
It's primarily metals based?
It's all metals based, mostly aluminum.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, good, thank you.
Well, I've gone over this pretty thoroughly, and I will say that I am in support of this amendment. I will say that this is not a carte blanche that I'm in support of every single amendment that comes through, because this is lost capture, lost taxes. So we got to look at this as a case by case basis. I'm good with this one. I think it's going to provide jobs. I think it's going to, but I would warn commissioners, look at each one of these things. But I think this is a good plan. Commissioner Hepburn? Oh, Rachel, did you want to talk?
Thanks, Rick.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepburn?
Thank you, Chair. I too have looked it over. Yes, we are losing a little bit today, but there's tomorrow and down the road. And the expansion of businesses, the creation of jobs is paramount to the success of Kalamazoo County. Chupin's has proven to be a leader in their community and a good business partner. I too want to support their expansion and look forward to their success down the road and the success that this will bring to Kalamazoo County down the road. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Rao?
As one who serves on that body, thank you for all of your hard work, and I am pleased to support this as well.
And you just look at the history of the Midlink Park, where they've been able to come in the last 20, 25 years, and that's just, it's truly remarkable. So happy to support it. Motion to come, Chair will entertain a motion to come out of the public hearing.
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, we are now out of the public hearing. Who would like to make the motion to resolution for the Brownfield Plan Amendment number 4? Commissioner Morales, you serve on that committee. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Clerk, will you please take roll?
Commissioner Morales. Yes. Vice Chair Ray.
Yes.
Chair Taylor.
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu.
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler.
You didn't want to do.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler. 7 yes.
You guys didn't want an technology audit. Okay, next on to the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name and yes. Oh, is there any motion from the floor under new business? Oh, gosh, yes, thank you. Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler.
I'd like to make a motion. Number 2, I move that the board deny the request to accept the signed grant agreement proposal by Pavilion and can't talk. Redact on the funding in the amount of $936,000 to the housing millage.
There is a motion and support. Discussion? Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Commissioner Morales. Yes. Vice Chair Ray.
No.
Chair Taylor.
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu.
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler. Yes. 6 yes, 1 no.
Now we are in public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name, number, and you have up to 3 minutes. See none. I don't think we're going to get any more phone calls. Okay, good deal. I'm just cruising. We'll go to the chair's report really quick. Good productive meeting. I think that we are coming into our own and starting to feel as a group and as a board more comfortable just shooting out what we really, what we really feel. And then there's not a lot of animosity when people don't, when disagree with. And I think that's a sign of a really, really, really healthy board. I do want to talk about one of the things that I kind of see coming up into the future. And I briefly touched on it when administration talked a little bit about the golden rule. Our retirees have not received a cost of living increase since 2001. Traditionally, we've gone from 1.5% or 1% or 2% in some years, different numbers of years, every 5 years or so. We go with a cost of living increase. We haven't done one since 2021. And I hesitant to even call it a cost of living increase because we cannot afford a true cost of living increase, but an appropriation to everybody knows that when you retire in your pension, it's usually pretty set and it goes up, but it goes up a little bit, but ours hasn't gone up in 21 years. I think that as we go through the golden rule on that thing, one of my priorities as we come up with additional resources, me personally, is going to be to try to look at what we are contributing currently to our retirement investment committee and how can we kind of offset some of these people, like I said, haven't gotten any raise in their pension in 21 years. That's something I'm going to probably be talking more on as we come up through carryover and everything else. But just wanted to put that out there. And with that, Bo, if you're still up, it's time for bed. Vice Chair Ray. Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler, you got extra time now.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I appreciate the extra time. Everybody sit back with the soda. No, I'm just kidding. I want to thank everybody. I'm sorry I wasn't here for our last meeting. I was out of town, out of state. Did go to a very interesting convention called IAPA. For those who don't know, that's International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. So it is quite a show. If you walk steadily, you might get through it in one day, probably not. But that's if you don't stop and look at anything. But they have everything from a novelty 15-cent squirt gun to a $4 million roller coaster. Just bring your checkbook. You can have anything you want. It was a very good show, very interesting. We also had the whole family together, which means a great deal to me. I had all my kids, all their grandkids, and we had a very good time. Did get a little wet. It did rain down there a little bit, like 3 inches in one day. So they had some flooding, but we managed to get through it. But it was great to be away for a little bit and back and fired up and ready to go. I want to, during this time, the holiday season, make sure that we all take a minute to thank all of our staff, our wonderful staff that works here so hard to keep us on track. All of our, all of our custodians, our police, our fire, our public health people, all around our county that work tirelessly every day to keep us safe. That's a paramount issue for our community, to have a safe community where people are inclusive and are taken care of the best we can. We need to be mindful of that. When you see them, thank them. Our military folks that are out there keeping us safe against the rising threats that we're facing every day. So please keep them in your prayers, and when you see them, thank them for their service. Want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, a safe Thanksgiving, and we'll see you all next month.
Administrator Control.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, Commissioners, audience. I want to say great meeting tonight. Lots of great discussion. Lots to work on for the next meeting, and we have less time to prepare because of the holidays. But I think it'll be nice to regroup with family and friends and enjoy the holidays. So I know staff are looking they're looking much forward to that. I want to send just probably several shout outs to a lot of departments. The first being our HR department. They just implemented a new payroll system and open enrollment system, and they've been phenomenal. Some huge success there. Lots of work to still do. It still disheartens me that our payroll staff have to work on the weekends to get payroll through to ensure that employees are paid. So we've been staying on top of departments that haven't been compliant with submitting payroll timely. So it's very important to us that employees are able to enjoy time off. So especially on weekends when they're not supposed to be working. So we're working to shore up some non-compliance on that, but super appreciated or super appreciative of our HR staff that go above and beyond to ensure that our employees are paid timely and accurately. Want to also extend gratitude to our building and grounds and our IT departments for the incredible and lengthy work and really quite intricate work they're doing on the Justice Center. We're at home stretch here that Justice Center is supposed to open up to the courts for the most part on December 4th. So we're working on that, and we're excited to get district court, circuit court, and the prosecutor's office in that building. A lot of the folks have walked through there and they're excited. It's a nice building. And so we're excited for that. We're working with the movers now. And just overall appreciation for all the staff. Like I said, these meetings take a lot of work to put together, and a lot of time goes into these, and we always have, a week and a half to prepare for them. So there's a lot of work that goes through, and some mistakes are made, but we appreciate the gratitude and the grace from the board. Want to just share one other topic. We're appreciative of Cope Network. They donated 45, I think it's 42 Narcan kits for our county facilities. So we plan on placing those in our AEDs and around specific offices in the county. So for example, our mailroom received one because there's just some suspicious mail that we may get, and that way they can have access to that tool to possibly save a life if something happens. So on that topic though, there are a couple of ways that Cope Network wanted to engage with the board that I wanted to share with you. And I don't need an answer tonight, but just something to put on the radar. Nancy King with Cope Network wanted to conduct an abbreviated training encompassing overdose prevention and reversal for the board. So a board training. She said she could conduct that in about 25 minutes. So my thought was that sort of a training could be conducted probably at like 3:30 before a committee of the whole meeting for those that were interested in participating in something like that. If you were interested, she also has a more robust training that's a 2-hour training, but it educates you on substance use disorder, overdose prevention, and reversal, and that's about a 2-hour training. So if you're interested in that, happy to set that up with Nancy. She's more than willing to come in and train you, do an abbreviated training or a more robust training at a different time. So I can reach out via email and try to get something scheduled on one of our future meetings. So that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. I know I'd be interested in the half-hour one. Commissioner DeLu.
No, it's again, very impressed with the board tonight. Thank you, and happy holidays.
Commissioner Gessler.
Thank you, Chair. I was particularly impressed with Commissioner DeLu making it through that long list of the consent agenda. The only thing that would have been better is if the word remonumentation had been included somewhere. He still has that to look forward to. I pass, and I thank you all for making this, I think, a very productive year. And to date, it's not over yet, but and have a great Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. Just y'all have a good and safe holiday, and go volunteer if you can.
Commissioner Wheeler.
I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. With that, we are adjourned.